What's up, everybody? It's HBT with Straight Up Wrestling Show, guys. I am here live, man. I am here this afternoon, guys. Going to talk a little bit about some old school things, guys. Hey, didn't get to come on last night. Well, I was on last night, but all night long had trouble here with my internet, guys, and AT&T just kept freezing up the whole internet and everything. So basically, I was in the midst of watching AEW Dynamite. Didn't get to finish that podcast. So, guys, I decided to come on today and go ahead and do this. I'll be on a couple times today, man. I'm going to talk about this right here, and I'll probably come on and talk about a little bit of independent wrestling a little bit later on, and talk about some ratings from 1989 as far as the WWE is concerned. So I'm going to go through it was several different companies that were still running in 1989, believe it or not. So I definitely will talk about their top 10, and I will talk about the contenders for the heavyweight championship, who held their heavyweight championship. At that time, you had the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, you had the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, you had the AWA World Heavyweight Champion, and then you had champions in Stampede Championship Wrestling. You had the World Class Heavyweight Champion. You had so many different. You still had a lot of different champions. You had the CWA Heavyweight Champion at the time. So it was other different organizations running instead of just the two that we have now. I mean, we have more than two. We got TNA in there too, and I think MLW. Or that they're in there too, Major League Wrestling. So you have those four, and you have a lot of indies out here running their little thing. And a lot of people out here call the champions the world champion. But the way I have to look at it today, now the NWA World Champion was a real world champion. He traveled the world and defended his title. I will give that same. I'm gonna go ahead and give the WWE, I'm gonna go ahead and give them credit and call their world champion a world champion too, because of the caliber of competition that was there. So you gotta definitely look at those wrestlers and say a lot of the wrestlers that they had, a huge part of their roster was top-notch world heavyweight contenders. So you gotta give them that distinction. Same way like today. Today we look at AEW and we look at WWE. Of course, these guys are not running out here and defending their world titles in the indies or whatever, running all around the world defending their title to other places outside of their organization. But you got to call them a world champion. Well, I can't even get his name out of my mouth. I got to call Cody Rhodes a world champion because of the caliber of competition that's in the WWE. Now, is he booked right to where he can defend that title against the top players in the WWE all the time? No, he's not, but he's definitely a world champion, guys. So you got to give him that distinction. Same thing as AEW, John Moxley or whoever has the championship. When they have the championship, they have enough world beaters. I'm talking about top-notch talent there to where you can call it a world heavyweight championship. Even though, like I said, they don't run around the world and defend a heavyweight championship like the old NWA World Heavyweight Champion, which Ric Flair used to do, which Dory Funk Jr. did, which Harley Race did, Terry Funk, those type of guys. They was traveling champions. Jack Briscoe, Lou Thez, they was traveling world champions. They went all around the world, man, in places that had wrestling and wrestled and defended that title. So you got to give, so that right there was 100% legit what they was doing. But man, today, like I said, when you look at the world champion in the two biggest organizations out there, the WWE World Champion and the AEW World Champion, you got to call them world champions because of the competition that's in those organizations. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that they are being booked right like world champions of the past, of course, because you got to look at somebody like Ric Flair. You look at Harley Race, what built those guys into what they were, man. It was the caliber of competition and the way they was booked that made them a world champion. And the people that you face on your journey as a champion determines how strong that championship is. It doesn't matter if it's the World Heavyweight Championship, doesn't matter if it's a World TV Championship, Intercontinental Championship, United States Championship, International Championship, whatever you call it. It's the caliber of competition and how that competition is put in front of you and how you knock it down is what's going to determine what kind of champion you are. If you should be considered a world champion, that's what made the NWA television champion so strong and made that title so prominent, is because the competition that was coming after that belt and the way it was booked. So guys, booking has a lot to do with how strong a champion is going to look. There's no ands, ands, or buts about it. So, we can come out here, people come out here and they want to talk about, not Dusty Rhodes, but Cody Rhodes. I'm about to say Dustin Rhodes, but they want to talk about Cody Rhodes and, hey, call him a boring champion or whatever. Some people come out and talk about Moxley and his title run or whatever. But one thing I'll say about all these guys, man, they only can do what the booking allows them to do. Man, what's going on, Raymond Underwood? Ray is in the house. But yeah, Cody Rhodes could be a strong champion. He could be a great champion, probably in that mold. Not as strong as Ric Flair, because he's not going to have that caliber of competition. He's not going to have what Harley Race had, but he can be just as strong of a champion as a Terry Funk, man, as a Jack Briscoe. Those guys didn't face the greatest competition, but they faced some great competition. I'm saying they didn't face the kind of competition that Ric Flair faced. No wrestler. No wrestler today and probably in the near future is going to face the type of talent that Ric Flair faced in and out, night in and night out. Not many wrestlers are going to ever face that. So, hey, he's the ultimate champion, man. And anytime somebody think about wrestling, they're going to think about Ric Flair, because when it boils down to it, taking a quote from the, Rocky, I think it was Rocky IV, where what was the guy? Tommy Gunn. He asked his manager, why all these people? He said, I'm out here busting my tail. I won the world champion, but all these people calling for Rocky. And he said, hey, man, what do you expect? He said, hey, the man fought wars in the ring. And that was Ric Flair. He fought wars in the ring, guys. He deserves the distinction that he gets today, even though Hulk Hogan was a way more popular champion, worldwide known and everything. He was huge, man. He had the machine behind him up in New York. He got to do a lot of things, went to Hollywood. He did a lot of different things. Ric Flair just wrestled. But, he is noted as the greatest, world champion ever, guys. And I mean, when people think about wrestling now, a lot of times they go straight to Ric Flair. It is what it is. It is what it is, even though Hulk Hogan and even Randy Savage had a bigger name than Ric Flair during their heyday. Andre the Giant did too. Dusty Rhodes did too. At one time, it was Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes was the most popular wrestlers in the world. And then you had Mil Mascaras and Ric Flair in there. At that time, those four was the most popular wrestlers in the world. But Ric Flair outshined all of them because he was the ultimate world champion, guys. And I mean, and he garnered all his respect from what he did in the ring. Now, it doesn't matter what he's doing now, but everything that he did in the ring is why he is so coveted right now and, so talked about by so many different people. But, man, let's go ahead and talk about the contenders to Ric Flair, that NWA World Heavyweight Champion in May of 1989. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, pretty much came up with this ranking. But, hey, it's basically was the rankings. I think the NWA came up with their own ranking system. You had WWE or whatever, and it went over to Pro Wrestling Illustrated. But I think they actually, Bill Apter and all those guys got together and did their own thing. But, man, hey, Ric Flair was the world champion, and behind me you can see it was Lex Luger got him in pretty much a suplex. Lex Luger is behind me, and Ric Flair right there. Lex Luger has Ric Flair in his own hole, man, has him in a figure four leg lock, and I had that right there on the caption, man, on the promo pic, so you definitely can see that. But Barry Windham, man, Nature Boy Ric Flair, Barry Windham was the number one contender. Barry Windham was number one contender in 1989, but I'm going to go all the way down. Let me open up the magazine, guys. I'm going to go all the way down to who's the number 10 contender, and I'll tell you if they was a strong contender or if they were not a strong contender. Most of his contenders for the top 10, in the NWA was very strong contenders, and they still had a few other territories at this time, not just Jim Crockett Promotions. They had a couple other ones out there running. So, Jim Crockett hadn't finished. Wait a minute. Jim Crockett, I think, was out of business. I think he already had sold it to Ted Turner. So I think everything was pretty much had subsided. Everything was pretty much decided who was going to be in the NWA. So you had the NWA running at that time. You had the WWE, and they world champion who was Randy Savage. You had the AWA world champion. That was Jerry Lawler. You had world class champion. That was Jerry Lawler too. Man, you had the North American champion. That was Don Morocco over in Stampede. Stampede was still going strong. The CWA champion was Wendell Cooley. You had Continental, who was it was Tom Pritchard, and you had the PNW up there in Portland. They were still running, man. Pacific Northwest, Top Gun was their champion, guys. So you still had a good bit of companies that was out here still running, man, and doing their thing. And all these companies still was pretty much top notch. But when it boils down to the WWE, the WWF, and the NWA, which was NWA WCW / WCW, they pretty much ran everything when it boils down to it. They was the top dogs, but everybody else was out in there trying to hang in, man. But let me go in there to Dusty Rhodes in 1989, man, May of 1989. In the NWA, Dusty Rhodes was the number 10 contender to Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship. Now, Ric Flair was just basically, he was still in his prime. Man, he was knocking down guys. He was just killing guys. Him and Ricky Steamboat, I think, just came off that trilogy. It was outstanding. Ric Flair was just, he was at the top of his game, just beating people down. I remember him taking on Ricky Morton around that time, taking on Hulk of the Road Warriors. This guy was at the top of his game, man. He was unstoppable, still, delivering those hard chops, getting old, getting up there in age, but still teaching the young guys, hey, what it was about straight up. Dusty Rhodes, man, Dusty was still a good wrestler, very good wrestler, but Dusty was, he had fell off a good bit. Dusty wasn't one of these guys, man, that, hey, Dusty wasn't going to miss a whole bunch of meals, but, Dusty still can get in there and he can get it done. But at this time, he really wasn't a threat at all to the Nature Boy Ric Flair. So definitely, at number 10, but he was a top 10 wrestler over in NWA at that time. And, he still deserves his props, but he was not a threat. Next, we have Larry Zbyszko, who won a lot of different titles, guys, as far as, Larry Zbyszko, especially tag team titles over the NWA. I think he won a world television championship over in the NWA. I think he won that one time or whatever. But, he really, as far as him and Ric Flair, I don't even remember him against Ric Flair many times. He definitely, he was number 9 contender at that time. But when it boils down to it, was he a contender? No, he wasn't a threat at all to the Nature Boy Ric Flair. So we got to go ahead and go bypass that, even though he's an incredible wrestler. Larry Zbyszko at that time, winning tag team championships, doing a lot of commentary and all that. He was not the Larry Zbyszko who pretty much shortened Bruno Sammartino's career and pretty much took over that legend status. And they kept calling him the legend Larry Zbyszko. He was a legend, but he was no match for the number 1 wrestler in the world, man, who was Nature Boy Ric Flair, the NWA world champion. So he was no threat to that title. Next, we have Mike Rotunda, guys, number 8. Mike Rotunda, great wrestler. I mean, outstanding. Did not get the credit he deserved, guys. This guy deserved a lot more credit than he got, but this guy was outstanding. Could do a lot of different things in that ring. One of the most technical wrestlers, best technical wrestlers, complex wrestlers I ever seen in my life. This guy was incredible, and not many people can come close to what he did as far as his amateurish style, man, can wrestling. He was just, on another level. But Mike Rotunda as a threat to Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship, if he would have got a lot of chances, he would have came close, but he really wasn't a threat to the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Ric Flair was just too canny, too smart. But Mike Rotunda, man, talking about somebody can roll anybody up, that's him. All right, next, man, we had Junkyard Dog, who was number 7. Mike Rotunda was number 8. Junkyard Dog was the number 7 contender in May of 1989 to Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship. Junkyard Dog at that time, man. You know, he was still good. He was really good. I mean, he went on his WWF run. You know, he wasn't the Junkyard Dog of the old Memphis days up in the early 80s and Georgia Championship Wrestling. He definitely wasn't that Junkyard Dog. You know, he wasn't that same Junkyard Dog. Came to the NWA. Of course, he was out of shape. Man, he just wasn't there. He still, was a bad boy. Get in the ring and he can whoop some tail. But was he a threat to the Nature Boy Ric Flair? And he came in and he did have some matches with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, but no threat at all, man. So so we got to bypass Junkyard Dog. He definitely wasn't a threat. Bam Bam Bigelow was the number 6 contender in May of 1989 for Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship. Hey, this guy, man, Bam Bam Bigelow. What can you say about Bam Bam Bigelow? That was a bad boy, man. And he was destroying things over there in the NWA. He was really running roughshod. He was breaking down some things. Could he been was he a contender? Was he a contender for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship? I say he was. I say he definitely was a great contender, and he's one of these guys who could have, if on his best day, he could have took Ric Flair out 9 out of 1 out of 10 times. So Ric Flair would have beat him 9 out of 10 times. But on his best night, he would have took Ric Flair out if he would have caught Ric Flair at the right time. But Bam Bam Bigelow, definitely a contender, man. Definitely one of these guys you have to put right there and say he was a contender and he deserved that number 6 ranking. Number 5, man, was Rick Steiner. I think Rick Steiner at this time was the world television champion at that time in the NWA. I think he was with the Varsity Club. He just now got out of the Varsity Club. I'm not exactly sure, but that was around that time. But Rick Steiner, he was incredible, man. Incredible specimen, very strong, very athletic, could do a lot of different things, and like I say, could roll up anybody. Legitimately one of the toughest guys ever in wrestling. Hold on, guys. Give me just one moment here. All right, be right back. Got to get my nephew off the bus. All right. We'll be right there, guys. Just hold on. Hold on. We'll be right there, everybody. What's going on, hon? Sit down. Be right in there, hon. All right, everybody. I'm back. But, left off, we was talking about Rick Steiner, guys. Let's get back to Rick Steiner. He was the number 5 contender for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Rick Steiner, man, definitely 100% deserves that. Rick Steiner was great, but was Rick Steiner was he a legit contender? I mean, yes, I will say he's a legit contender, but was he a threat to Ric Flair? Not at all. Not at all. I don't think Rick Steiner would have ever beat Ric Flair. Out of 10 times, Ric Flair would have took him out each time. He just was a little too smart, a little more crafty, a little more crafty. And even with the power of Rick Steiner, who had the power advantage, he had a lot of things on Ric Flair at that time. But could he beat Ric Flair? No, he couldn't have beat Ric Flair at that time. Ric Flair, like I said, was at the top of his game. And, man, he was, he was just that special. So, definitely, but Rick Steiner, most definitely a number 5 contender and deserved his shot at that World Heavyweight Championship. All right, the number 4 contender at that time is the man we're talking about, the man who's right behind me, the man in that picture, Lex Luger. He was the number 4 contender, and you can see that right there. They have the, countdown right there on the left-hand side of me. Lex Luger was that number 4 contender for Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship. Was he a legit contender? Yes, he was. And he got a lot. He got numerous shots at that title. And that's what I used to love back in the day. Those guys will get numerous shots at the title, and they put on great matches against the world champion or a guy who had the title, almost beat him. And they continued on with these feuds. It became rivalries. That was a rivalry between Ric Flair and Lex Luger, one of the toughest ones he ever had. Doesn't get the credit it deserves, in my opinion. But Lex Luger, great contender. At that time, 1989, Luger had been in the business. He had been in the NWA, I think, since like 86. 87 when he came in. So he had been there for like a little bit over 2 years, almost 2.5 years at this time, chasing Ric Flair. He already had numerous shots, never at that time overcame Ric Flair, but came very close. So he definitely deserves that number 4 contendership. But at that time, 1989, was he going to beat Ric Flair? No, he wasn't going to beat Ric Flair, but come very close. I say 8 out of the 10 times Ric Flair was going to beat him. But, Lex Luger was going to come very close, man, right there at the tip of it, at least 2 times, maybe 3 times out of the 10 times that they face each other. Lex Luger always gave the Nature Boy a tough time. Very strong, big, fast, could do a lot of power moves in there that can affect, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. But he was Nature Boy Ric Flair, who still had some power too at that time, had some good size, man, quickness, very smart. Always was taking out Lex Luger straight up. All right, number 3, man, Eddie Gilbert was the number 3 contender. I think he was the UWF. I think he was in the midst. That's when they bought the UWF. Eddie Gilbert, I think, was the UWF Heavyweight Championship, UWF Heavyweight Champion. Now, Eddie Gilbert, and very popular, hot stuff, Eddie Gilbert. Very popular. Pretty much one of these guys, man, that got by on his name, got by on his popularity. It's just, I'm not going to say highly overrated or whatever, but in my opinion, he was a little overrated as far as him being the number 3 contender. At this time, definitely should have been in the top 10, but I say he probably was around number 7 when it boils down to it. Yeah, so was he I'm just going to go ahead and say, was he maybe if you caught Ric Flair at a great time, out of 10 matches, he may have scored a pinfall, may have. But that would have been very tough for Eddie Gilbert to do. But Eddie Gilbert was very smart, very crafty. So he would have been able to keep up with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who, like I said, Ric Flair, most of these people that's on the top 10 list at that time, Ric Flair is going to outsmart. He's going to be more crafty. He's going to outthink them. He's going to control the ring, man, ring generalship. He's going to control the management of the match, Ric Flair. But Eddie Gilbert was smart enough, and he's one of these guys, man, who's a lieutenant himself in the ring, who could have put up with a lot of things that Flair was doing, and he could have beat him to the punch maybe 1 out of 10 times, maybe. But, that number 3 contendership, I say he should have been at 6 or 7 at the time, maybe 7th, not number 3. But Eddie Gilbert definitely was a top 10 contender at that time. At certain times, Eddie Gilbert was at the top of his game, and he definitely could be in the top 10. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, next, man, the number 2 contender. Hey, need no introductions from me, need no reason to say why he's the number 2 contender. Sting was the number 2 contender in 1989. All actuality, this when Sting was really coming up, this a little bit after the Clash of Champions. Sting was just, he was coming into his own at this time, probably within 6-7 months in, with NWA, WCW. This guy was just incredible. Everybody knew that. And Sting was just, Sting was Sting, had to holler, to scream, to yell. That's when he had the, the face paint, different colors and everything. The Surfer Sting. I used to love that Sting, the Surfer Sting. And me, if you ask me, excuse me, guys, ask me, that was the best version of Sting, 100%. I know a lot of people like the Crow, but that was the best version of Sting. Bigger, stronger, but yeah, bigger, stronger, not just bigger, stronger, in his look and everything. He was bigger, stronger than Flair. Very smart in that ring, but Flair always outsmarted him, man. Flair was just, he was incredible. He was incredible, but Sting definitely was a serious threat. And, out of 10 matches, he's going to win 3 of them against Ric Flair at that time. It just is what it is. 3 to 4 of them, he was a very serious threat. Barry Windham, wow. Number 1 was the United States. I'm sure he had the United States Heavyweight Championship at that time. Barry Windham was the number 1 contender for Ric Flair's title and definitely deserve it. This man is underrated when it boils down to it. Don't get the props that he deserved. One of the best wrestlers of all time, Barry Windham, Blackjack Mulligan's son. Incredible. and him and Ric Flair, man, you know, believe it or not, guys, I know a lot of people always want to talk about the Iron Man matches, 60 minutes here, 60 minutes there. They always want to talk about the 60-minute Iron Man matches. Ric Flair and Barry Windham, I saw them go 90 minutes twice. They had two 90-minute matches. I think they did it 3 times, but I know they had two 90-minute matches back in the mid 80s. They had two 90-minute matches against each other. Those guys could go. Those guys could go. When they went against each other, they could go. It was almost as good as Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. Not quite, but very close. Barry Windham, one of the best technical wrestlers of all time, man. You know, he could do it all in this ring. And I'm not talking about his technical ability. I'm not saying that he's a Ray Underwood. What's going on, Magnum? Mag is in the house, my man. All right. But I'm not saying that Barry Windham is a Mike Rotundo who's on this list, you know, as far as technical ability. But he was just incredible, and he could do a lot of different things. I mean, Barry Windham, when you look at him and you see him wrestle, you would think of a Vern Gagne type dude. You would think of a Dory Funk Jr. as far as all the holes and the things the way he can maneuver his body and the way he can pretty much control the ring. This guy, he had it all, man. Barry Windham definitely had it all. But yeah, he's most definitely a number one contender for that championship of Ric Flair's. Ric Flair, you know, out of all these guys, man, Barry Windham was the best out of all these guys. Of course, Sting, you know, I know a lot of people will argue Sting was incredible, but yeah, he wasn't a Barry Windham. Barry Windham was the United States heavyweight champion at the time, and Barry Windham was in the Four Horsemen. That's the reason why he was not wrestling Ric Flair. And Tony Schiavone did come up one time and said something about that, you know, when the Four Horsemen was out there, and they talking about, you know, Ric Flair, he done went through everybody, done knocked down the whole top 10. And then he started looking at, Tony Schiavone was looking at Barry Windham. And he's saying, you know, hey, what about this dude right here, Barry Windham? You know, Barry Windham, he was the number one contender. And Ric Flair got mad. Ric Flair just started screaming at him, talking, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Trying to start something between him and Barry. But Barry and Ric Flair, man, they had some battles in 86, 87. They had some battles. And like I said, I remember 2 of them. I saw those myself, 2 90-minute, you know, and 2 90-minute confrontations. And the Wrestler or the Pro Wrestling Illustrated covered those. But those was the real Iron Man matches. I know everybody want to talk about the 60-minute Iron Man match. You know, it didn't really get the popularity that, you know, it got the popularity, even though, you know, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat had went 60, 90 minutes. He had went 90 minutes with Steamboat too, you know, back in the 70s. And Harley Race wrestled a couple Iron Man matches and things like that. But it didn't really get the recognition, I think, until they had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels went 60 minutes. And then all those people in the WWF, because it was so popular, so big, they just went flipping crazy. Oh, the Iron Man match. They never had seen it up in the NWA. Man, NWA always did matches like that. Luthez had matches like that, but the WWF didn't do that, and so that was something new to them. And because they was the biggest, you know, they was the biggest organization, they got all the publicity for it. But the Iron Man matches in the NWA, you know, a lot of guys did that. But hey, Ric Flair and Barry Windham, 90 minutes, guys. I think 2, maybe 3 times, but I know they went 2. But those guys, man, they went at each other when they matched up. Love seeing that. That's one thing I did miss when Barry Windham was over in the NWA. I missed the matches that he had with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, because they were some of the best. Outside of Steamboat, he matched up with Flair the best, if you ask me, straight up, even though Steamboat, you know, he might say some other names and all that. But all in all, man, hey, Barry Windham was a tough contender and always put together great shows with Ric Flair. Hold on just a second, guys. All right, guys. Sorry about that. I'm back. That was my brother on the phone. Just wanted to talk to him a little bit. Hey, if you can read lips, you might have read my You might have read my lips or whatever, but I mean, you might have read what you could understand what I was saying. But yeah, he's going to the Walmart. He wanted to see if I needed anything, so I appreciate him definitely. I appreciate him doing that. Giving me a call and asking me that. But hey, guys, man, shoot, I'm just hey, just on here, man, rolling. Hey, got this thing rolling, and yeah, hey, and if you see me on Facebook, man, hit that like, share, join. If you see me here on YouTube, hit that like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, ding, 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 so you know when we're on like times like these. Do the same thing. If you see us on Twitch, hey, we on Twitch live right now. And if you see us on X, guys, formerly known as Twitter, guys, hit that like, share, tweet, and retweet, and follow the Straight Up Wrestling Show. Guys, man, I went down the whole list. Like I said, let me run through these guys one more time, man. The NWA at that time, the NWA top 10 was Dusty Rhodes was number 10. And like I said, man, Dusty Rhodes, a great wrestler. We know what he was over the years and all that. But at this time, 1989, hey, Dusty Rhodes, he was a good bit past his prime. He wasn't a real threat to Ric Flair's NWA Heavyweight Championship. Number 9 was Larry Zbyszko. Larry Zbyszko, been champion plenty times before. A lot of times in the NWA, he was tag team. He would team up with people like Arn Anderson, and he became World Heavyweight Championship. Teamed up with I think Bobby. What his name? The guy who a beautiful Bobby Eaton. He teamed up with him and won a World Heavyweight Championship. And I think he had the television championship, World Television Championship at one time. And he did a lot of commentary. At the NWA television desk with Bob Caudle and Don Cronodle. Bob Caudle, let's see, what's the name? The other Crockett, David Crockett. David Crockett, he used to team up with David Crockett, and he teamed up with Tony Schiavone, and pretty much, he teamed up with different guys. Jim Ross, teamed up with plenty of different guys, and he did a lot of commentary back then. But Larry Zbyszko definitely wasn't a contender, for that title, even though he was the number 9 contender. He deserves a spot, but was he a threat to the Nature Boy? No, he wasn't. Number 8 was Mike Rotundo. Like I said, Mike Rotundo, outside of Dory Funk Jr., the best technical wrestler I ever seen in my life. Mike Rotundo, and doesn't get the respect that he deserved. Most people are going to remember him as IRS or Michael Wall Street. But, Mike Rotundo, that guy was incredible, man. He's not just Bray Wyatt's dad and Bo Dallas' dad. This guy, man, he was a better wrestler than those guys. I'm sorry. He was incredible. Mike Rotundo was incredible. Junkyard Dog was the number 7 contender at that time. Junkyard Dog, hey, wasn't the Junkyard Dog that we remember from the Memphis days, Mid-South days, or the Junkyard Dog that we remember from Georgia Championship Wrestling. That wasn't the same Junkyard Dog. And this Junkyard Dog had, he left those 2 territories, went through the WWE, WWF at that time, went through them, and then he came back to the NWA. Rocky King brought him in as a surprise to Ric Flair, and Ric Flair had some matches with him. Junkyard Dog, hey, wasn't a test for Ric Flair, was not a contender for Ric Flair, definitely wasn't a threat. But do he deserve number 7 at the time? I say he did. He came in and he wrestled his tail off, even though he was out of shape, but he wrestled his tail off. Number 6 definitely was a threat. Number 6 is Bam Bam Bigelow. Definitely was a threat to the World Heavyweight Championship at that time. If he caught Ric Flair on a good night, I think he could have took him out 2 out of 10 times easily. All right, Rick Steiner, man. Hey, Rick Steiner, great wrestler, but out of 10 matches in 1989, Rick Steiner had the World Television Championship. Came off his Varsity Club run with Kevin Sullivan and Dr. Death Steve Williams and Mike Rotundo. But, Rick Steiner was just incredible, as a solo wrestler. And if you haven't seen him, you need to go back and check out the power, all the moves and everything that he could do. He was a great singles competitor. But was he a threat to Ric Flair's World Heavyweight Championship at the time? No, he wasn't. And I'll tell you the reason he wasn't already unsaid it. He wasn't a threat to the Heavyweight Championship because Ric Flair was too smart for Rick Steiner. He would have outsmarted him every single time. He was a thinking champion, and he definitely would have controlled that ring. He would have, his ring generalship would have carried the day. And we have Lex Luger, man, who's number 4, definitely a threat to the World Heavyweight Championship. Ric Flair used to take him out every time, and I'm not shocked, and I'll go ahead and say it. In 1989, every single time these guys going to meet up, Ric Flair is going to take him out. All right, number 3, Eddie Gilbert. Eddie Gilbert could have shot Ric Flair and maybe beat him one time out of 10. Back in the day, Eddie Gilbert was just smart, and a lot of the things and a lot of the tricks that Ric Flair was going to bring to the table, Eddie wasn't going to fall for it. All right, guys, we have Sting. We know Sting. Sting, in 1989, he definitely could have beat Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight Championship. At this time, he hadn't taken him out, but he was very close. But 3 out of 10. Maybe 2 out of 10. I say 3 out of 10. Already done said it. 3 out of 10. He would have took that. He would have took the night. But Ric Flair, hey, very strategic. The timing was right all the time. He knew when to get somebody, and he knew when to wrestle those guys. He knew how to strategically place his opponents and when to go against them and when to take them on. And I mean, this guy, hey, most times he was going to take out Sting at that time. But hey, the number one, Sting was the number 2 contender. The number 1 contender definitely deserved it. It was Barry Windham. But Barry Windham, like I say, he was part of the Horsemen, man. At that time, he was at that. Actuality, I don't think Barry was part of the Horsemen. Now I think about it, he wasn't part of the Horsemen because this was the Ric Flair who had came off of the Ricky Steamboat saga and was going up against Terry Funk and all them. So Barry Windham wasn't part of it, but Barry Windham was the number 1 contender. Man, incredible wrestler and everything. But guys, I'm going to come back a little bit later. I will be talking. I don't know if I'm going to do a live or I'm just going to do a video of the WWF. I'm going to do their top 10, the WWF top 10. Let me go ahead and give you a preview of it. Made 1989 Pro Wrestling Illustrated top 10. The WWF World Champion was Randy Savage at that time. The number 1 contender was the Ultimate Warrior. Number 2 contender was Bad News Brown. Number 3 contender was Hulk Hogan. Number 4 contender was Big Bossman. The number 5 contender was Andre the Giant. The number 6 contender was the Honky Tonk Man. The number 7 contender was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. The number 8 contender was Greg Valentine. And the number 9 contender was Jake the Snake Roberts. The number 10 contender was Kurt Heenan, guys. So I'm going to come back and do that. And now I'll do probably tonight I'll be doing the AWA. I'll probably do that one live, AWA top 10, the contenders, the top contenders for Jerry Lawler's World Heavyweight Championship. Jerry Lawler was the World Heavyweight Champion in the AWA at that time, guys. So let me go ahead and, I'll go ahead and give you guys the top 10 on that, too. I'm going to go ahead and do that one, too. A little bit later, Jerry Lawler, you had Iceman Parsons was the number 10 contender. At that time, you had Colonel De Beers, guys, who was number 9 in that top 10. You had Jeff Jarrett, who was number 8 in that top 10. Jeff Jarrett, all the way back in May of 1989, Jeff Jarrett still doing his thing, guys, and still look good when it boils down to it. Hey, if the booking was right, I think he could look a lot better than what he looks now if the booking was right over there in AWA. All right, the Iron Sheik was the number 7 contender, guys. The number 6 contender was Sergeant Slaughter. The number 5 contender was Manny Fernandez. The number 4 contender was Chief Wahome Daniel. Wow, man. The number 3 contender was, the man who has a great podcast, the man who has a lot of hair on him and who just came back from a serious illness, and that's my man, Dutch Mantell. The number 2 contender was Kerry Von Erich. The number 1 contender to Jerry Lawler's World Championship, world title, AWA world title, was Greg Gagne, Vern Gagne's son, guys. And hey, this dude was never going to get the world title, in my opinion. But guys, I appreciate each and everybody coming in with me, man. And hey, sorry that I didn't get to see that show last night. I did see the show. I was watching the show, and I just kept having all them technical difficulties, guys. I'm gonna try to do it a little bit later. I'm probably gonna watch that here in just a little bit. I'm probably gonna go ahead and watch that. What was the show? AEW Dynamite. I'm gonna go ahead and watch that, guys. Wow, guys, I did not even know my mic was muted, guys. Wow. Sorry about that. Guys, man, I'm gonna have to come back and I'm gonna have to recap all this stuff. Sorry about that. I didn't even know my mic was muted, guys. But yeah, the top 10. Wow, I'm gonna have to end up taking a lot of this stuff off, man. But yeah, goodness sake, man. Mic was muted. I'm gonna have to go back. But I'll talk to each and every one of you guys later, man. Stay straight up. Peace. Wow.